Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, events, and issues surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. And we had a lot of all those things to talk about over the course of this past week. I'm Stephen Conway. With me, of course, is Jeremy Finestone, contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. Today was Wrestle Kingdom 18, the biggest show of the year. We had lots of title changes, a new World Heavyweight Champion, a culmination of what ended up being a 10-year storyline. There were exciting matches, emotions, and it was just a great day of professional wrestling, the kind of thing that makes you remember why you love it all so much. And we're going to get into the details of it at first, but Jeremy, my heart was flat out soaring after this show was over with. I thought it was fast paced considering its length. We'll get into that. Each match was a little bit different, and each one provided something a little bit different than anything else on the card. I walked away from that thing reminded of why I love professional wrestling. I guess you can't ask much more from a show than that, can you?
I don't think there was a bad match on the card. Everything had something to offer. Brisk. Everything on the undercard was 15 minutes or less, basically. And then once he got to the main event, it was 25, 30 minutes. You're in, you're out. A lot of spectacle to that main event. Wrapped up some loose ends, made some special moments, and I had a great time. Now, let me ask you this. Show was 5.5 hours long from Rambo to end. Did you get 5.5 hours sleep between the end of the show and now?
No, sure didn't. I'm going on a lean mixture right now. Thankfully, it's I've got my coffee here, but I had a great time. And it was fast paced. No match went over. I don't think anything hit the 27-minute mark, let alone a half an hour. Everything was tight. There were a lot of elaborate entrances and some things going on between matches that were a lot of fun. And it's just something where the pace felt good. It never dragged. It had something, a lot of variety to it. I'm just thrilled with this thing. This came out better than I thought it was going to, and I did have high expectations for this show. Came out better, and it was part of just a phenomenal week of pro wrestling. And I'm glad we have some of our regulars here. Brad is here. I'm glad to see you, Brad. Yeah. I know that he's been watching everything in the world this week, as have we. Venkin is here. We're glad to see. Glad to see you here. We do have a lot of things to talk about.
So I got two things that I'm going to come at you quick first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everyone in the audience, please wish Stephen Conway a happy birthday today.
Oh, geez. No, it is not.
It is
Thank
his
you very
birthday.
Much. Thank you.
It is every Wrestle Kingdom, and we got to get that out of the way. Second, because it's his birthday, if you want to hit that like, subscribe, comment, share, all stuff, that's the gift that he wants the most. He wants this podcast to go far, far, and wide. Anything you can do to spread the gospel of the Speaking of Strong Style show, we would very much appreciate it. And third, Stephen, back to the show.
Okay.
Anyone do pageantry better than New Japan?
No. Well, I mean, WWE has had some real home runs over the past few years with some of that stuff, but there were some special moments.
Like wrestling pageantry, when it feels like you're in a wrestling show rather than trying to be the Super Bowl of something. Okay. There's something special about the Tokyo Dome hits different. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And when those entrances, I think I want to say from El Desperado on, they were on point. Every one of the entrances that came out. And even the ones before then were just amazing, but they became next level at that point. Was there anything about the entrances, that any one of them that struck you that looked just that you were wowed by?
Yeah. Will Ospreay's Assassin's Creed themed entrance I thought was great. I don't play video games, and it's not because I think they're dorky or anything. I'm terrified I'd get addicted to them, so I stay away. They're too good right now these days, so I don't play them. So I don't know a whole lot about Assassin's Creed, except I know that I recognize that. I don't live in a cave. I recognize that one. And apparently he got total permission and cooperation from Ubisoft, the company that makes the game, to do it. And they even promoted his entrance and thanked him for it. Basically, paid a little tribute to it on their social media. So that was pretty cool. And I thought it looked great. I love that they gave him the old Rey Mysterio, the platform that shoots up and launches him.
Right.
I thought that was a phenomenal one. And of course, the big one there, Jeremy, for the first time in his entire career, Bryan Danielson got pyro. He got pyro for the first time. WWE, AEW, it's New Japan that gives him pyro for the first time. So yeah, there were very special entrances there, and the set looked really good.
Did you understand John Moxley's mask?
Not really. I mean, I understood it's a DC Comics thing, correct?
It is a DC comic reference. It is in reference to the character named Jason Todd. Actually, in the poster behind me, the Robin that died in the comic books, but through comic bookery, came back.
Fair enough. Understood.
And he held a grudge against Batman for letting him die and or not doing everything in his power to save him. And so he is someone who's died, and he's angry at the people that have taken him out in the past. And so he wore that because of what Finlay did at Power Struggle. And so that was his Death Rider Red Hood tribute, Jason Todd. And I wanted to make sure we got to tell that story because goddamn, that's what we're here for.
No, it was great. And the thing is, this whole thing, we'll talk about it when we get to the match by match part of it here, but we had the culmination of really what ended up being a 10-year long story at the end of this one. And they gave us the ultimate happy ending right there. So you left the show feeling elated. Tetsuya Naito, the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, like we were hoping. And there were just a bunch of beautiful moments on this show, though, and some surprises, definitely some surprises. There were some things there I was not expecting that came in, but almost all those surprises made me happy. And there were a couple of matches that damn near stole this show, and this is a hard show to steal. So I felt the energy was strong right away. Perhaps it was because the guys weren't getting a ton of time because they were going to try to get all this in 5.5 hours, and I thank New Japan for doing so. This show was shorter than Noah's show, and Noah's show felt a hell of a lot longer. It was only about a half an hour longer in total, but Noah's show felt a lot longer. And
there was some ankle dragging on that Noah show that really caused it.
And we're not here to knock anybody on that for the moment here, but it's just a matter of the energy was there, and each match had a different energy where everybody seemed pretty jazzed up, and the crowd was into everything. This was an enthusiastic crowd, and that really does help too. And we're going to get to some of your comments here in just a second, guys.
This Wrestle Kingdom show made every other show in Japan this week seem like an indie. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was the size and spectacle of the Tokyo Dome, which was like the Noah show, which had a modest but like appealing stage, and like the matches were, strong within Noah, but leaning heavily on New Japan. And then the All Japan card had the Miyahara and Nakajima match, which was basically like what carried that entire card. And then you have thoughts about the Stardom show, but in a whole, like this thing was like the big time this week, and they staked that big time feel. Was another thing that I thought.
It was the culmination of a very big week in Japanese pro wrestling, and the good part was the build-up to this culmination was very strong. Each company that we're about to talk about here, Noah, New Japan, All Japan, and Stardom, all had strong crowds. And it was a big week. And USVA guy is here. Good morning from Tokyo. Glad you're here. Thank you. Dunstan, glad to see you. Glad you're here. Already said hi to Brad and Venkin. And Brad mentions this too. Mox said in an interview that he loves the Batman universe, and that is his favorite character. So this is something that he really enjoyed getting to do that. And and Brad also mentions the show made me so excited about tomorrow's dash. Yeah, no kidding.
Do you guys think that Danielson and Okada are in a tag together?
Oh, let's hope, please. Yes, I would love that. I know they just did it last year with Omega and Okada, the Impossible.
But they weren't opponents with each other.
Right.
They were in completely different matches, so they could do that, and it wouldn't be the same thing.
Dunstan says, completely agree with you, Stephen. Oh, thanks. The show somewhat flew by, and the pacing felt like they wanted to keep it on the small side of length. Yeah, I mean, for a 5-hour show, it just moved. It just had, and even the little cameos and things were all really strong. And Brad says, Danielson, Mox, and Shota as a team. Ooh, I like it. There's just so many ways they could go with that mystery vortex thing, isn't it? It's going to be so
gonna
exciting.
Wake up, gonna watch that show, and I'm gonna turn off the internet and enjoy myself.
So let's talk about the week here. So Stardom had a crazy week too. I mean, they had a sold out 1,536 person turnout for the Tokyo Dome City Hall show, which is of course in the same general area. It's within walking distance of the Tokyo Dome. And before the show, I think it was like 2.5 hours before Wrestle Kingdom, they had their show, and 1,536. And it was a historic day for Stardom as well. First of all, New Japan related, Mayu Iwatani retained the IWGP Women's title. She beat Shuri in what everyone's talking about is a fantastic match. The other huge news, Jeremy, is that Julia disbanded Donna Del Mundo. And the storyline reason was that now that Micah has won the World of Stardom title, Shuri's held it. Certainly Julia held it. Now Micah holds it. Therefore, according to Julia, their mission has been accomplished. That was the storyline reason for disbanding. So Tekla is apparently going to go back home and heal up. She says she's banged up, and everyone's kind of on their own for right now, and we'll see how all that shakes out. Scott Edwards talked about how there's going to be some big changes there, but is this part of Julia's swan song? Could be. But a huge day. Go ahead.
I got to tell you, I had every intention of watching this show. On Tuesday, around 3 o'clock, I go on Stardom World. I pull my iPad. I get the Apple TV. I sync it all up to stream it. And I'd watched the Noah show earlier in the day. I'm like, all right, time for Stardom. They took the YouTube feed down, but they didn't upload the right show on Stardom World. And so it was my window. It was my window to watch it, and I had every intention to watch it. And then I didn't, so I did not get to see this show.
Well, that was the Dream Queendom show. Now, the one where they disbanded everybody and Mayu had her defense was today's.
Well, I
show.
wanted to watch the Dream Queendom and then watch the next one. I didn't get to one or the other.
Dream Queendom was a terrific show. They drew 3,000 to Sumo Hall for that one, 1,500, and then they had a strong thing in the Yokohama Budokan on the 3rd for the Triangle Derby and the Rookie of Stardom tournament. 960 people at the Yokohama Budokan for that show, so that was good. All Japan drew 2,500 in Yoyogi and 2 more shows that were over 1,000 in Korakuen Hall, including the title defense of Nakajima against Charlie Dempsey, and then he beat Kento Miyahara in a really good match there in Yoyogi. And then Noah, of course, at their show on the 2nd. Well, we might talk, if we have time, we'll talk about that main event in there later, but a heavy New Japan influence on that show drew 5,134 to the Ariake Arena, which is an excellent turnout for them as well. So it was one of these weeks where everybody built to a peak. It looked like a lot of fans were going to a lot of these different shows. And, a lot of people I saw on social media catching multiple shows throughout the week, which is blast. I'm jealous of you all and happy for you. And it was just a week that led up to this big Tokyo Dome event that then somehow managed to, after all that buildup, surpass the expectations. I just feel so good right now. And I know this is a New Japan podcast. And of course, I'm rooting for them to do well. But this is a special day.
But a rising tide lifts all ships, Stephen.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea in Japan. I will say from that Noah show, my main takeaway was that Tomohiro Ishii and Masa Kitamiya was a fantastic match.
One of the best of the week.
It was among one of the best of the week, and that is well worth your time to go seek out.
So let's get into that a little bit, because the matches from Dream Queen, if you're going to put together a best of this whole week, I would recommend, of course, Suzu Suzuki and Micah for the World of Stardom title. Also the tag team title match at Dream Queendom, fantastic. I would also recommend, like you mentioned, Kitamiya and Ishii had clearly the best match on that show. The GHC title match between Soya there and Keno was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And the Miyahara Nakajima match from All Japan, great stuff. And then, of course, Mayu Iwatani and Shuri was a great match today at Tokyo Dome City Hall. There are others.
Yeah, there are others.
If you have to pick and choose other stuff for the week, those are ones that I would make sure.
That's almost 2 or 3 hours worth of matches right there. So.
Oh God, yeah.
And then you got to find them, and it's a whole deal. Just
yeah. And
it was a fun week. It is. The future seems a bit brighter for Japan right now. Definitely some ambiguity with some talents, where they're going, who they're cooperating with, that kind of thing. But, people leave and people get back.
Yeah, and Venkin mentions the fact they disbanded. I was like, Julia might be leaving for sure now. Yeah, it's looking more and more
Oh,
like
my
it.
first day. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and then what we had here, Venkin said, Sayori Anu versus Mirai, the end is better than the start. Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's not a bad point. Watch the last 5 minutes of that match. The first bit of it didn't go great. And thank you for the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. But the first bit didn't go great, but the last 5 minutes really took off right there. And yes, I did get David Finlay as a champion for my birthday, but the way it happened, I'm actually not too upset about it. We'll talk about it. I'm not, it was just a very interesting thing they did with that. So which I'm kind of into. We're gonna get into it. So I guess we just go ahead and break down this Wrestle Kingdom card, right? Is there anything else you wanted to add before we start really looking into this?
No, following your lead here, buddy.
That's fine. Well, let's begin with the Rambo, because we got a good example of one of these. Now, Rambo's, of course, this is Royal Rumble style thing where a guy enters every however long, minute or 2 minutes, wasn't really sure. And of course, the idea of this, we're going to get down to 4 guys. So once it's down to 4, the match stops. Those 4 people go on to New Year's Dash to compete for the provisional 2024 King of Pro Wrestling title. So we're not going to go into this piece by piece, but Rambos are never great matches. But this was an entertaining enough version of one, I thought, to make for a good
warfare.
Open. It was, yeah. They brought in guys in chunks. You got a couple of War Dogs, then you got basically all of United Empire, then you got others that came in. So there were surprises like Fujita Junior Hayato, who is somebody that's come in through the Frontier Zone and not Multiverse United, but the junior heavyweight shows that Hiromu Takahashi puts on, where they bring in guys from all over and various promotions. So he came in and he got a brief shine in this one. Izuka came back, for the love of God, the man with the iron fingers, and looked fantastic. This guy hasn't eaten a carb since he retired. Looked great. Yeah, and he looked great. I mentioned, and it looked the guys lining up to sell for him was a lot of fun to see. You could just tell that everyone was just like, I'm going to get bit. I'm getting bit. He's going to bite my head. I can't wait. They were just waiting to sell for this guy. And yeah, I went through.
How did Taichi know to bring the Iron Claw with him?
Well, I think that just, well, that's a good point. Now, did he bring it, or did that just
he
appear?
Brought it in. He ran down, he undressed, he pulled the pouch out, and he slid it to Izuka. And I was like, is that the claw? And then he pulls out the claw, and I'm just like, I haven't seen that since Suzuki's retirement ceremony.
The Iron Fingers of Doom. So yeah, but in the end, the final 5 were Yo, who was going for some sort of comedy thing. I'm not really sure about on this. He came out like he wasn't dressed to wrestle. He came out in a sweatsuit, a tracksuit, one of the New Japan tracksuits, bright blue.
Role of Taguchi.
And he what now?
He's inheriting Taguchi's role right now. Just the comedy guy.
He came out in shoes and socks, both of which were removed. He spent half the match laying on the top rope because he got crotched for approximately 20 minutes by Show on the top rope, and he just kind of laid there. So he was doing his own thing. Like Yo was experimenting.
Well, he came out with the shoes and socks, and then the shoes were removed at some point.
Yeah.
And then his socks were removed by Show, and so he was barefoot on the ropes, but it wasn't because he came out that way.
No.
It was like the Chaplin-esque, like, silent comedy that's happening in the background. But the problem is, Steven, the feed kept cutting out.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
we were all watching this on a Japanese feed for the most part, and some of us were having to refresh and jump in and jump out. Yeah. And so there was a lot of ambiguity and confusion about exactly what was happening where. And so we're doing our best to recap this, because there are chunks for me that I missed out of this, like who got eliminated where, and we were piecemeal trying to figure out like who did what where on some of these eliminations.
The new version of NJPW World is still stumbling out of the gate. It has not found its footing as of yet, and it did struggle today. There were times when when Walker Stewart and Chris Charlton just weren't on. Even on the English feed, they were playing the Japanese commentary because something was going wrong. And then if you got out of that and then went back in it, you could kind of hear Walker and Chris, and it was very strange. And
it settled down by the main show, but it was definitely not great.
Brad mentions that Chris Charlton's line about Hayato is he'll kick Yo, he'll kick Sho, he'll even kick Cancer was great with his story. Absolutely right. He did find a neat way of bringing that in. Brad said the Rambo was fun. The 30 minutes went by very fast. It did. Yeah. Again, it was another thing where because of that gang warfare thing, the faction warfare where they would bring guys in chunks, one guy would come in, then his partner would come in, then maybe a third from that group, and then a different group. It made for little chapters within the match instead of it just being a dozen guys in there in the corners, kind of, how sometimes a battle royal can get to be like people are standing in corners and just kind of either choking or clubbing, waiting for their turn to do something. Instead, this did have small chapters within it that kept the story moving. And USVA guy says, Izuka completely made my day seeing him. I was pretty happy too. And so it came down to the final five, and we're not going to break down this entire match here. Don't worry. Final five were Yo, Great-O-Khan, and again, Yo mostly laying on the ropes there, but he hung in. Chase Owens, Taiji Ishimori, and Toru Yano. And I thought Taichi might be a little bit more involved in this, but he and Izuka got tangled up when they couldn't come together on that. Izuka turned on him there, turned on his former keeper, and they got thrown out together. Just can't trust those maniacs, I tell you. And in the end, Okan gave Owens the eliminator on the apron, and he fell out of the ring. Almost went start to finish, because that was the thing, that Chase Owens was the first guy in, but he was the last one eliminated from being in the final four. When he hit the floor, that was the end of it. So at New Year's Dash, Yo, Great-O-Khan, Chase Owens, excuse me. Great-O-Khan, Yo, Ishimori, and Yano will be the four. Yano's already held this thing. Okan's competed for it. And so there's a little bit of continuity from past years into this. Your final four for the KOPW. An entertaining Rambo.
It'll be fun. At least Ishimori's in there to keep it athletic. That'll be
Yo's in there.
Yeah. But Yo needs somebody to work with to be athletic, and Taiji Ishimori is typically more aggressively athletic. And if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So
we'll see.
Next one.
Yeah, and there was only 15 minutes until the main show started. We didn't have to wait too long. Match that opened the main show for the junior heavyweight tag team titles. This was Catch 2-2 against the War Dogs of Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. Now, this one only went 9 minutes and 38 seconds, but it was more about TJP because, of course, last we saw him before today, he had been loaded into a coffin at Korakuen Hall and not seen since. Francesco Akira did the press conference by himself, and his ominous quote was, "It's not a matter of if TJP will be there, it's what he will be."
Right.
So Akira came out with a coffin. Apparently TJP has been in there ever since, and they rolled that thing out there, and Akira opened up the coffin, and out came TJP, but dressed as Aswang, who's a mythical Filipino monster. And of course, he has a little bit of, I don't know, a little or a lot, but there's Filipino blood TJP there. And it was a cool looking mask and an interesting outfit. But this is a
Bray Wyatt-esque. Like everything about it screamed like the Fiend with the mask. And I don't know if that was a tribute or just like that's what he wanted to do. But there were definitely vibes of that.
And apparently made him bulletproof as he took the No Chaser and the Drilla Killa in short order, and both guys finishers, and he stopped the ref's count by reaching out and grabbing the referee's wrist before it could hit the mat for the 3, which is stupid, but hey, we're not going to quibble about this. But he didn't actually get his shoulder up, he just grabbed it. How is that a kick? Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but the point was that he was indestructible at this point, and the match continued on, and he sprayed either red mist or it was Maloney's own blood back at him. Maloney did get a nick there. He was cut during the match.
There's a lot of blood in the shirt.
There was, yeah. Although I don't think any of it was intentional except Moxley, who bleeds if you hit him with a rolled up newspaper. So you always expect that. But they did hit the double running knees on Maloney to eventually win the match. It was a good match. And I'm going to say that I agree with Brad here. This gimmick might eventually get in the way of this Aswang thing. If he lets that be too much of it. But he said, I like Catch 2-2's entrance. I think the gimmick of the Aswang hampered the match. The commentary trying to sell the spooky stuff wasn't good. Yeah, it's not Well, I mean, you've heard my thoughts on Bray Wyatt on the rap and all that, and his in-ring work. Not, and it was. This isn't my favorite stuff in the world, but supernatural stuff. But he didn't necessarily say he had superpowers, did he? It was just a costume. I wonder if this Aswang thing, Jeremy, could be a way of TJP bringing in a Finn Balor-like demon gimmick for big matches. You know, just something you bring out.
I
for big matches.
sincerely hope that that's what it is. If this is like an everyday, like me and my pet monster kind of thing, I'm not really here for that. Like, you've already have Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus for that over at AEW. Okay, so I'm with some of these folks. I am not into the spooky. The spooky shit is not my jam. I went to Dave Meltzer's house last night and I watched a show there, and I spent 5 minutes before this match started trying to explain to him what was going on with TJP and the Ant Swan, and I don't think I actually succeeded when he saw what was presented on the thing. So he's gonna do a recap of this tonight, but I tried, everybody. I tried to let him know what was going on with TJP, and this one was not a success. I'll have some more stories throughout the night, but that's definitely one that happened. I spent 5 minutes prepping him, and it just I didn't do a good job.
You can only do what you can do. So Dunstan says it shouldn't be used every feud. That kind of gimmick doesn't fit so well in New Japan. Yeah, agreed. Let's see what they do with it. I mean, you always expect some sort of special presentation for Wrestle Kingdom. And if he's doing it like Finn Balor uses the demon, I'm not too torn up about that. That might work. But let's give it a chance on this one. But I'm a little skeptical as well, gang. I'm a little skeptical.
If this is all the time, no.
But hey, good wrestling match. Good wrestling match. And the thing is, they fooled us a little bit because Connors and Maloney made this big deal that they had a new straps made for the belts. So it's about the same, the new title belt thing. In white, they came out in white. And Jeremy, the white thing didn't turn out too good for most people tonight.
Yeah, no. The only person who wore white and walked out happy was Naito with those boots of his. But other than that, it was the good guys wearing white or the bad guys wearing white or just wearing white. Just not your night.
But they came out with the gear matching the belts, and you just think, well,
it was looking good. They looked good.
They were fading you hard toward the title retention, and then as it turns out, no, the Aswang just too strong for him. So Catch 2-2, a great tag team, and once again,
thumbs up match. We haggle about the details, but this was in fact a thumbs up match for me.
Yeah. And after that, we had President Tanahashi coming out there. And this was interesting for a few reasons before we get to the match itself. So, of course, Hiroshi Tanahashi, now publicly known as the president of New Japan, and he was out there against Zack Sabre Jr. for the TV title. Zack, of course, going for the 4-0 singles record in the Tokyo Dome, starting your career 4-0. Not very many people have done that, Jeremy. It's like Hulk Hogan, was it Jushin Liger, and there was one other, I think you mentioned, that got to 4-0. So it was be a big moment for him. And of course, he's got all these title defenses over the past year with this TV title. New president is coming. I thought this was nice that Mayu Iwatani had made her way over from Tokyo Dome City Hall and sat in on commentary for this one after her win over Shuri. So it was good to see at least a little bit of visual presence for the IWGP Women's Champion. They teased a fast win by Tanahashi with a sling blade, aces high, and a high fly flow attempt very early, but Zack got his knees up. And then it settled in, and even though this only went 8 minutes and 53 seconds, again, brisk pace, great.
It was so fun.
Great mat wrestling. He's such a great opponent for anyone, but especially for Tanahashi, because Tanahashi knows every move in the world too. And that's something that doesn't necessarily come through when Tanahashi wrestles other people. But he knows every submission, every counter, every different pin attempt. The guy's just an encyclopedia of knowledge for pro wrestling. Both guys are. You can say that about either one of them.
Sure.
Beautiful series of counters that I can't even possibly explain here led to Tanahashi getting the pin in a classic Zack Sabre Jr. scramble where they're finding 10 different ways to get each other's shoulders down on the mat. It was a win for Tanahashi.
It's the reverse, like, I got you for a roll-up. I got you for a roll-up. And they switched the momentum. And usually when that ends, it breaks up. But it actually ended with a pinfall, and it caught everybody by surprise.
Zack was gracious in the loss. He was a total babyface in that. And what this hopefully means is that Zack is on to bigger things. And with Will Ospreay obviously heading to AEW, and the good news about AEW is he might be able to come back for special occasions. But this could move Zack a notch or two up the foreigner hierarchy. And he's already pretty high. But I think all of us think that Zack could be part of the world title picture or something of that nature. And maybe it's time to move him away from the TV title. I'm perfectly okay with it. Of course, now, again, the TV title was supposed to be for younger wrestlers on smaller shows in smaller towns. And this is about as far away from the intention of this title as you could possibly get. But hey, I'm not going to complain. Good match. Hell of a good match. We'll see what Tanahashi does with this TV title. The other thing that struck me on this is he did a speech afterwards, and we were told that Tanahashi is going to address the crowd as president, and he did, and he said absolutely nothing. It was the least he could have possibly said, which was, "Thank you for supporting New Japan. Continue to support us in the future." So no major announcement there. That was the only letdown, I thought.
I mean, we were all there for the Tanahashi announcement. Sanada and Naito, nobody was paying for that. We all wanted to see what Tanahashi had to say at some point.
You weren't curious what he was
going to say? That was indeterminately planned throughout the show was, in fact, what we were here to pay for.
And Brad says, Big Vinny V said this was the best closing 8 minutes of a great 30-minute match. Say the idea being that it was a fun sprint. That's not a bad way of putting it. And Venkin just said,
on the 2 thumbs up for me.
Venkin says, I made the joke multiple times. President needs to flex his title at meetings, and then this happened. Yeah, I guess so. And then Dunstan says Tana pulled an Inoki by putting himself over. But keep in mind,
we make these jokes, right? We make these jokes. But the TV title, those matches are put on YouTube. And if somebody wants to watch TV title matches, you could do far worse than having Hiroshi Tanahashi matches put free on YouTube against random opponents for 15-minute matches and say, hey, this is New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And Venkin, Mayu didn't get lost, surprisingly. Oh, okay, fine. It's true. Hopefully somebody did lead her over there. That's true. Mayu plays up the clumsy, spacey character very, very well. After that, we had our special singles match. Now, I think that this was a bit of a 2-match suite in the middle of this show. And this is the first of the 2. So we had this one, and then we had the evil Ren Narita versus Shota Umino and Kaito Kiyomiya. I felt like both of these matches were here to do very similar things, which was go on early in the show, which was a smart move, because both of these are toward the beginning, not at the beginning, but toward the beginning of a much longer term story being told. They don't need to be higher up on the card yet, because Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura, Ren Narita and Shota Umino are going to be very high on a lot of cards going forward. Both of these things were just little chapters in the early stories there. And I thought it was neat to put them back to back and to do it that way, and to just kind of say, okay, in our 3rd and 4th match, you're going to be seeing guys who will be in mains and semi-mains for years and years to come. It's not their time yet, but they're coming. And I thought that was the whole message of putting this little 2-match suite here as the I don't really want to get into the whole 3 Musketeers thing, because I think that's the previous administration, and Uemura is as good as any of them. But the future, that foursome that is the future, began to take stage here. We had Uemura and Yota Tsuji, 10 minutes, 57 seconds. It was Uemura's first singles match since his return from excursion. He'd been in tags and nothing but tags since. It was all Tsuji early, so that pointed at our finish a little bit. The best spot was Uemura pushing Tsuji off the rope. Tsuji flips and lands on his feet, then super kicked Uemura out of the air when Uemura jumped at him. That was beautiful. As the match built down the stretch, it was a bunch of big moves. It was a New Japan match there. And eventually, Uemura managed to get the deadbolt on to win. So now, Tsuji has to chase him instead of Uemura having to fight to get this match, which was the story of December. Tsuji just saying, I don't know if you're worthy. You're going to have to pin me before I think about facing you at the Tokyo Dome. Well, he did pin Tsuji in a tag, and that led to this match. Mm-hmm. Then Uemura has now pinned Tsuji. And it's a great storyline because now Tsuji can't sleep at night until he gets this win back. Right now, he's the one that's chasing. Now he's the one that's going to be demanding return matches. It's a perfect spot for this match as a chapter in a story that'll lead to bigger things in the future. I enjoy it. I look forward to seeing more of these two in the ring together. They have good chemistry. It was good stuff.
You've touched on the main stuff, but I just think the future is bright after seeing this match. There was definitely okay, New Japan's going to be fine with the shepherding of young talent that we have and the people that are already there and these guys thrown in the mix. Yuya needed this match, he needed to look good in this match. Yota was fine, but Yuya needed to deliver more than Yota did. And I think that they both accomplished what they needed to accomplish in this match. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. I get some comments on here, and he said about Mayu, it's not really a character. She's a pretty big goofball. Well, she has a personality. She's very bubbly, and she does play up that kind of space thing. But maybe she is a little bit in that. But the clumsiness, I'm convinced. We'll get into this another time. The clumsiness, I'm convinced, is an act. I've got reasons why I think that. I think she actually plays that up big time. But Dunstan disagrees with us a little bit. Okay, Dunstan, what do you got to say there? I'm sorry, but I don't think Yuya is ready just yet. Tsuji looked like the better competitor in that match. Well, I mean,
that might actually have been ring psychology, if that makes any sense. Tsuji looking dominant for the match but losing is an excellent story. It means that Yuya knows the flaw in Yoda's game, and he's got him, even if he's not overall the better wrestler. He's the guy who's got his number.
Yeah. And Brad mentioned Tsuji came off as more of a star than Yuya did. Yeah, that I believe is true. And so in that case, and this is an even smarter result then, because Yuya is the one that needs to be pulled up a little bit. I think Yuya is a really good wrestler. There's no doubt Tsuji has a stunning amount of charisma for this stage of his career, especially considering as a young lion, he certainly had personality as a young lion, but this has blossomed far further than just about anybody else coming back from excursion and just being just an electrifying presence out there. That is something that has come leaps and bounds, and Uemura hasn't gotten there yet, but he's still a good wrestler.
I would argue that we are comparing them as if they are at exactly the same point in their career. This was Yuya's big first match entrance and opportunity. Yota already had Dominion. He had the G1. He's had a bunch of opportunities here and there for these big match moments. This was Yuya's first time, and he came out. He came out way better than a lot of people were expecting him to do. In all honesty.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. We'll see how this one develops, because this is certainly just the beginning of that part of this story, because Tsuji's just the way they've been circling around each other and the way that their careers were tied together as young lions. Tsuji's not going to be able to rest until he gets this back. So, and Dunstan mentions it may just be the style of Yuya that's a little too close to Ren when he came back, and he needs time to develop more. He's going to get that.
Face. He is the super baby face, even more than Shota. He's just Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah, that's who they keep comparing him to, which is a steep uphill climb, man. That's a tough act to follow. Up next, we have an even quicker one. Kato Kiyomiya and Shota Umino against Ren and Evil. This one went just about the way we thought it would for the most part, although the different person getting the pin than we thought. 7 minutes and 6 seconds, Jeremy. We were on fast forward here. Cool entrance. Shota Umino coming in on a motorcycle, looking like a badass there. It was quick, but it was good while it lasted. And Umino, my favorite moment of the match was he hit that where he vaults himself over the top rope and hit a DDT on Narita on the apron. That looks great. In the end, they had the push-up bar shot on Umino. That was by Narita. They threw that push-up bar in for Katsuyori Shibata, the Kaiser Soze of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And then the double cross from Narita to Umino to win. We thought that House of Torture was going to win this match because it only made sense because, again, this isn't the blow-off by any stretch of anybody's imagination. But they went all the way with it and beat Umino and had Narita do it. So they are just firing up the heat, so to speak, on Narita here. They're just trying to get things nuclear warm on Ren Narita and just have him embarrass, beat down poor Shota for a little bit longer and on a bigger stage, so that when Shota gets his revenge, it's all that much sweeter. Evil and Kiyomiya had a couple of moments in this one, but 7 minutes, this was in and out.
This was maybe the weakest match on the card, and it was a lot of build towards the future and making sure that Kiyomiya got some shine on the show. Shota got an appearance on the show. But if you want to see a more thorough match with these guys, you need to go check out that Noah show with the 12-man elimination match with all these guys in it. It told a far better story and gave a lot more feature and highlight to everybody in here. And that's fine. And this was fine for what it was too. It wasn't bad or anything like that, but it was simply not the night to focus on these guys.
No, and they weren't trying to. And this was almost a signal. It's just like, more to come, more to come. This is just to whet the appetite. And whenever Umino does get a win over Narita after all this, the crowd is going to love it because they're pretty pissed at Ren right now. They've been very effective. And Ren's been good. Ren's been good in the role, acting like a jerk.
Uglifying Ren, of making him just the dirtiest little troll out there. Would you call him Ren the Rat?
Yeah. And Benkin mentions that Evil cut a Noah shirt in half as well. Yeah, that feels like it's not over with either. I think we'll see more of Kiyomiya. Yeah. And like Dunn said, not bad, not great, but it wasn't time for it to
still thumbs up. I refuse to not give this a thumbs up because it wasn't bad and it didn't go long.
Yeah. And Ren is doing fabulous in this, and Shota's a great baby face. So this is going to develop nicely.
Now the show took a turn.
Tama Tonga and Shingo Takagi walked into that ring and decided, you know what? Let's see if we can steal this thing. And they damn near did. Jeremy, this match was incredible. Now, it was far better.
Brutality.
Far better than a really good match. I saw this in Vegas. I saw Shingo win the title in Las Vegas from Tama Tonga there at Sam's Town. At Sam's Town. And this match, and it was a good match. Enjoyed that match. It was a good title match. This thing was phenomenal. This never open-weight title match between these two was beautiful. What did you think here?
Every single person who said, I don't understand why they're doing Tama Tonga and Shingo Takagi again at the Dome. Doesn't seem exciting. I'm not here for this. Okay, whatever. We're all going to have to eat a giant bag right now. It's basically what we're doing. I was one of those people. I really did not have any interest in this match. I will say I was wrong. This match was very good. This match was tremendous. This match caught my attention early, and it refused to let me take my attention away from it. And it was violent. It was hard-hitting. It was snug. I don't know anything other than to say that these two men had something to prove for that tonight, and they came out there and proved it.
When we talked last week to Chris Samsa, we said that this was an angle alert because we just thought, why would you go back to this unless you were going to do something else? And what we underestimated was Shingo and Tama's ability to do something different than what we had seen in their previous stuff. And by that, it far out exceeded any expectation right there. They knew that they had to do something different than Las Vegas because that Las Vegas match was really good, but this is the Tokyo Dome. And they had something in mind where they just thought, you know what, we might be the talk of the town after this thing. And they really did a great job. Interesting twist at the end that we're going to get into these comments because it's definitely worth talking about. And we will right after this here because you guys have some good thoughts on it. I'm interested as well to see where things go. But Shingo hit a tope con hilo, for the love of God. I don't remember him doing that, but I know he's done it before. I don't personally remember the last time he did it. It's been a while. Tama hit his big splash off the top. It was exciting. It was snug. Back and forth. There really wasn't a long period of any one person selling. The whole thing was that these two were in a bit of a battle of wills and broken bodies. And the chemistry was fabulous.
They might have had the move of the night.
This match just built wow moment by wow moment. There was an attempt at a Made in Japan. Yes. He pulled Tama Tonga up and he flipped and turned it into a gun stun, which was just one of those. Oh my God. And now this is the middle of the night. I don't know what time it was exactly. My dog is sound asleep with his head in my lap. So I've got like an 80-pound puppy. He's about 9 months old. He's 80. He's Great Pyrenees, so he's huge. and I just kind of popped straight up and went, wow. And he got up and started barking because he thought like he had missed an intruder or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. My girlfriend's sound asleep. But anyway, it was a big wow moment. And eventually the DSD was countered into a Hurricane Rana. So then the other story began to be told here. Tama hit a Bloody Sunday. That was a moment number one. Shingo ended up hitting a gun stun of his own. Then he hit Made in Japan for 2. At this point, because of all these little wow moments that have built up and big moves, the crowd was into this. They were feeling like, oh, we're watching something special. And you know, that little moment where you realize that guys maybe you didn't expect are really turning on the Jets, and the crowd starts to get behind them, just think, go guys, go. You know, like it was like that. Tama ended up hitting a Styles Clash. Then a gun stun for 2. Big pop for that. He finally hit the DSD to win. So over the course of the match, Tama paid tribute to all of his mentors. The gun stun he got from Carl Anderson. The Bloody Sunday from Prince Devitt, Finn Balor. And then, of course, the Styles Clash for AJ Styles. And so he did all that, won his title back, and then strangely went to the back and announced that this is my final month with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm going to work in the United States now. And now that I have this never Openweight championship, I'm out of here soon. So, and he said he decided on that today. So we have no idea if New Japan was aware that this was going to happen. And perhaps if they did, maybe they just decided after 10 years of strong service, we'll let them go out on a high. Or if they were as surprised as the rest of us, we just don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. But it leaves that title hanging in the balance a little bit if he's absolutely leaving, which it sounds like he is.
Someone in our room who's watching the show said, "Why the hell would they put the belt on him if he's leaving at the end of the month?"
That's what everyone's wondering, isn't it? I mean, so the question is, did they even know? I mean, maybe that's something that he didn't. I mean, maybe he kept it to himself until
the conversation is always the contracts are up at the end of end of January and renegotiating. He might literally just said, I do business. Look, Carl Anderson left with that belt and he disappeared, and they were able to figure out a day for him to come and do that. Tama Tonga won't be nearly as difficult. They'll find a person. You had a prediction that I think is entirely possible, and that is one Hiromu Takahashi and Tama Tonga in a match sometime in the near future would not be completely out of the question.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways they could go with it. It's Vankin mentions. Let's get some of these comments because I want to hear people's thoughts on this because I was a little rattled by myself. Now I want to ask: is it on purpose they always hit a Styles Clash in the Tokyo Dome? There's a love affair with AJ Styles and New Japan that is a beautiful thing. There's any trip that move is so over in Japan. If anyone does a Styles Clash, it always gets a big pop. Mm-hmm. He's been gone for a long time, but it's they love him there. So yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think they know that you can get a pop with it if you can do it. And then Brad just mentions Thomas' post-match comments pissed me off so much, and he elaborates by saying, "I'm all for going home to be close to your family, but he better drop that title tomorrow." If he blindsided the company with that, that's a little weird. And maybe it's an honest reaction that he did just decide that, maybe it's not going to get better than this. I just had one of the best matches in the Tokyo Dome and now's the time to go. I don't know. I don't know.
At the same time, that Tokyo Dome match sure did feel like a goodbye match in a lot of ways. Like that was his last real big match. Like he did all the tribute to all the other people.
You're right, except he friggin' won.
He did, but he could drop it at the end of a tour at New Beginnings, and it's not exactly the biggest show in the world, but he could still lose the title or just vacate the title. They might do that, just do a tournament for that, something. But
he's not leaving until the end of the month, so there are still opportunities.
There's a show in a week, Battle of the Valley. He could certainly have a match there. It is not doom and gloom. I'm thankful for the service of Tama Tonga in New Japan Pro Wrestling. There is time for him to do business and drop the title to someone along the way. We are not in the red zone.
No. And, the key is, too, they could do something at Dash tomorrow that sets up a match later on this month, and that might tell us what we need to know about how this is going to turn out. And at least Ghetto has a night to think about it. And
you can have Tangaloa turn on him and take the title from him, and then all of a sudden Tangaloa, the never Openweight champion.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, I know we could have better ideas, but
as ideas as ideas go, that is one of them. Brad says is he taking the rest of God with him? And he said,
I don't think
Duncan
so.
says he can take Tangaloa. It is a curious question. Is like, what's the future of Tangaloa if Tamatonga's gone?
So I did a podcast segment on We Work Stiff's 8-hour retrospective about new Wrestle Kingdom. So they did 8 hours. They had a bunch of people on a bunch of different shows, but they actually did have ELP and Hikuleo on their show as well. Mm-hmm. And they said if they didn't win this match, they would seriously reconsider where they're going to go on their next step of their careers. But if they won the match, they would probably stick around. So I get the impression that ELP and Hikuleo are not feeling the same thing as Tama Tonga.
Dunstan says, as for who should take the belt off him, Henare, Nakajima. Everybody wants Nakajima in New Japan. No one would argue that. Any of the War Dogs. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of choices. And let's see. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So some madmen jumped them backstage. Yeah, true. Legend has it that Ghetto and Finlay are still running away from the press conference. We'll get to that. Yeah, they might be. They're getting their steps in, aren't they? They're getting their steps in. He vacated the premises pretty quickly.
There you go.
And USVA says the company definitely knows he just had another baby. They've discussed this for the last 4 months, according to him. So, we'll see. We'll see. There's time. Even if they didn't know, there's time for a plan here. And Tama Tonga's not going to walk out with the belt. He loves New Japan. So. It just that
never title has been in weirder situations than this in the past. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right. But hey, hell of a great match. Just a fantastic match.
Yeah, underrated match of the night.
Shingo Takagi is so great that I just feel that even if he never touches the world heavyweight title again, and I kind of hope he does someday in some form, I think he should go into the Observer Hall of Fame the same way Ishii did this year. It doesn't have to be immediately, but just as far as work goes, just great match after great match after great match. I think he's going to get he would get, if I had a vote, he'd get it. But he really should be in there. And matches like this really prove it because no one was looking for that.
No, it was caught everybody by surprise. Probably shouldn't have. The C bracket for the G1 was tremendous, top to bottom, and this was the spiritual finale to it.
After this, we had the title versus title match, the IWGP tag team titles versus the Strong Openweight Tag Team Championship. So you had Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto, Bishamon, against El Phantasmo and Hikuleo. Again, under 10 minutes. Really fast, but really good. Both of the Nemeths were ringside for this one. Made a point of showing them. That's, of course, Nick and Ryan. Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler. Both teams are very, very smooth. More excellent energy here. They knew they weren't going long, so they went hard. And it was fast moving. And eventually, Bishamon hit ELP with the Shoto, but Hikuleo broke it up. Just do a couple of the highlights here. Goto kicked out of the Super Thunder Kiss splash after the choke slam. I believe it's the first guy that take the whole thing, the choke slam and the Thunder Kiss, and then kick out. ELP hit a pile driver, and then the big finish, Jeremy. Hikuleo jumping off the top rope and hitting the splash himself there instead of ELP. The big man did it. They ended up pinning Bishamon, and Hikuleo and ELP are now the double tag team champions. And this story continues on with maybe Jato's the manager of the year now. Really, if you think about it, he's had a wildly successful year.
Everything
but Jeremy,
turned to gold.
If only I knew perhaps where the idea for that finish may have come from. I wonder if only we had a video clip. Why don't you play this and show the people what we're talking about?
If it wasn't for ELP. So he does push me.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. When the first time it didn't work out, I was like, you know what? Let me try it myself.
You doing a thunder kick off the top rope and then your poor knees, my man. Your poor knees. How are you feel? Are you ever going to try that one again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course.
That seems like a Tokyo Dome moment. Like if it were up to me, I'd see a thunder kiss like that off the Tokyo Dome. Both of you doing a thunder kiss.
Now I know why he does it, man. The rush you get for being up there. When he held me out there for a second, I was like, damn, this is pretty damn cool.
There you go, folks, right there. It was projected
ELP
right here.
sitting there like, you're giving away our finish, bro.
Who knew? But we have an idea of what's going on with this company, I tell you. No, but this was a terrific match. Like I said, only less than 10 minutes, so it's never going to be in that classic tag team match epic category because you just don't have time. But what they did with it was terrific. Brad says, I'm very interested in seeing where the tag scene goes from here. Me too. There's a lot of really good teams there now. And Dunst said the biggest question is, what will they do with both belts? And defend strong in the U.S. and IWGP in Japan might be Vankin's suggestion.
That's what I think they should do.
Me too. Me too. I think that the strong titles should be the ones that are defended in the U.S. and keep the other ones back. And I don't think it's that complicated, except they've never really figured out how to do that. Dunstan says merge the belts in a giant capital.
We don't have enough belts in New Japan. That's not possible.
You can never have enough. There are enough, trust me. But good match. And again, it does lead to things in the future. Bishamon's always there. You can always bring them back into the picture after giving them a little bit of a break and the fans a little bit of a break, get them refreshed. Yes. That's what I was just saying. Dunstan has strong opinions on this, which is fine. But there's TMDK. There are the War Dogs. There are teams like Henare and Okan who are real teams. Really, they might not have a name and matching outfits perfectly, but that's a good team. There are places to go with this, and I think the tag team division, what we just saw in World Tag League, a pretty good World Tag League, we've got some real options coming here, and I think that there are. It's nice to have a new team like El Phantasmo and Hikuleo. I'm excited about the tag team division, which is the one real weak spot in New Japan lately, is that heavyweight tag division since the loss of Aussie Open. I think they might be on the path to creating a new dynamic division there.
I'm in a position right now where I think that they need to have a long and decent run because they took the IWGP titles from the 3-time World Tag League champions, multiple winners at Wrestle Kingdom for the IWGP tag titles. And so if they are shortly to lose any of these titles, it immediately undercuts them and the run before that. If that makes any sense. So ELP and Hikuleo should really be holding these titles for at least 3 or 4 months with at least 5 or 6 title defenses, hopefully. That's kind of where I'm at with it, mainly because of the work that has been put in to legitimize the tag division through Bishamon up to that point.
And Dunstan says, I hope we get some actual stories for the heavyweight tag team division that are built well. Yeah, that's really what we're asking for, isn't it? And they have one on the shelf that they can bring out whenever they need to, which is TMDK being the best team that hasn't won it before. That's there if they need it. I don't want them to go to it right away yet. We can wait on that. But there are places to go out there, and the War Dogs are always going to be in the mix, right? Because we saw that they were a big part of this show, even though they were out early in the Rambo. They were an entertaining part of the Rambo, and then they would come back later in a big way. So they have plans for those two.
The future is bright, and the last thing they need to do is hot potato those titles.
Yeah. No, that I agree with totally. That this should not be a one and done thing by any stretch. So. Yeah. Now, are we ready to move on to IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship match? Been waiting for this one. Hiromu Takahashi, El Desperado. I know they've met in the Tokyo Dome before. This one felt different. The build up to this one felt different. The execution of it felt different. I love the idea that Hiromu in the press conference says this is the last time I am facing Desperado in anything except a main event. Yeah, I love that attitude, don't you? Just that whole thing. No. We are worthy of main event status. He's right. And I love that he said that. This match was 14 minutes and 21 seconds. It was excellent. Of course, these two are spiritual, they're just spiritually connected as far as wrestling
They're like
goes.
5 versus 5. They are eternally going to be in combat with each other.
It's so great. And they're certainly like wrestling soulmates, like what Rick Steamboat and Ric Flair had, where they just they can fall out of a plane or something, land in the middle of a ring, have a 5-star match. They just go right into it. some of the highlights for this one, about halfway through, there was a long numero dos segment that was well worked and established that Hiromu's knee might be a little bit squirrely going down the stretch. Hiromu kicked out of a Pinche Loco, but after exchanging big moves, Desperado hit a Pinche Loco pile driver. Oh my God, Jeremy. This move looked incredible. And then the Pinche Loco to win. And 14 minutes and 21 seconds. It was smooth as silk. It was wonderfully worked back and forth. Again, a lot of work on Hiromu's knee. And then, Hiromu working on Desperado when he would hit big moves and kept kind of cutting him off and sneaking things in. It was tremendous. I thought it was interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't think I am, but I only had a chance to watch the match once. I didn't have to go back. I don't think Hiromu hit Time Bomb or Time Bomb 2 in this. Like, I don't remember him having to come up with a close near fall after that. So if that is indeed the case, that Hiromu didn't even hit his big moves against Desperado, then it really was the story of Desperado having this strong performance and a real coronation. The idea that he didn't even take the finishing moves of Hiromu Takahashi and was able to beat him. It felt like them saying officially, okay, Desperado is on that level, because Hiromu's been there alone for the past several years. I think this was a story that Desperado is absolutely, even with Hiromu Takahashi on top, we have two kings of this division instead of just one. I think that's the story they were trying to tell us, and I think they accomplished it.
This was Desperado's year, man. I still think about that John Moxley match on July 5th, the Strong Independent show, and I think about the best of 7 tournament with the other guys, the Hontai guys. Just, he's not gonna get his flowers, but Desperado had a fantastic year, and he had a better year than Hiromu Takahashi. Hiromu had a lot of big match performances, and he showed up for them. But Desperado was there way more nights doing the shows than Hiromu was. We were watching a lot of those shows. Desperado was definitely doing the tours a little bit more than Hiromu. Hiromu would join up near the end of the tours, but Desperado was doing a lot of work, and he deserves every bit of credit for the ascension that he had this year. Not to take away from Takahashi. Hiromu had to do his part to elevate Desperado in this match, and he did. I knew going in that this was probably going to be my favorite match that people weren't going to be talking about, because everyone's focusing on Danielson and Okada and the three-way and SANADA and Naito. But wherever I could get a chance to say, hey, I think Desperado and Takahashi is going to deliver. And yeah, I feel validated. This was a fantastic, just special match.
Hiromu had big matches and he had challengers in 2023. He didn't have a feud. He didn't really have a long story. It was just kind of him taking on whatever challenger of the month or every other month that it was. Desperado had the twists and turns. He had the Moxley thing where he just had to go and do that death match or he wasn't going to feel right about his life. He was part of that best of 7. He had the whole thing with Master Wato. It was a much stronger storyline year for Desperado. So people had a little more emotional investment in him. And you could tell that the crowd was very, very happy when he won this thing. So looking at this, they said, oh yeah, Venkin mentions this too. A fantastic dive onto Hiromu, who was still wearing that super elaborate alien-looking jacket at the beginning to jumpstart the match, which is not something that anyone expected. Including Hiromu. It looked like he did a great job of not looking at Desperado until the very last second. And that just set the tone for the whole thing. Brad says that Despy finished his story and the ending was wonderful. And Venkin compared them to Azumi and Starlight Kid as the eternal foes of New Japan. I think those words were even said during the broadcast by Charlton. And then Rocky said what I've said for a while, which is that Hiromu is on that top plane with the original Tiger Mask and Liger as far as just being a generational face of the division. And he needs that rival. He needs his Black Tiger. He needs his Dynamite Kid, and Desperado can be that. And
I was never more impressed than when I was sitting there and Rocky said there are 3 names that I would put Hiromu with. Meltzer said the names as Rocky said them, and he beat Rocky to the 3 names before Rocky. And I'm just like, Damn it, Dave.
just listen to me for the last year. I've been saying this.
Yeah,
I've been saying the same thing. I've been saying the exact same
funny
thing.
when you know, man. Like, I'm glad I have glad to have you two here.
That's the list, and that's the short list and all that. So Dunson said this show and each result has the question of what now, which is very exciting. Yeah, and Desperado is. We found out what is up next for Desperado in a couple of ways. So he went back to post-match comments and was challenged in a gentlemanly fashion, of course, by Master Wato, who congratulated him and then said that he wants a shot. After that, not so gentlemanly, he was attacked by Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru and beaten up there in the post-match area, in the post-match press area. So he already has a few challengers lined up. None of them are Hiromu Takahashi looking for a rematch, which is what we've been talking about here, where whether it's global title, never open weight, I think Hiromu might be on to different things here too. He doesn't need to be in the junior heavyweight title match. He's a guy that can transcend that junior heavyweight division. I'd love to see him take a shot at that at the never title, because it's an open weight title. We really haven't seen a junior run.
Man, I thought it was a fantastic idea.
We'll see. And Brad says that it's interesting Rocky didn't name Kushida on the top tier. And he's close. He's close, but I don't know if he was the ultimate face the way for years and years. Well, maybe. That's an interesting thought, but I still think of Liger and Tiger Mask on a different plane than that. So Alessia, oh, happy birthday. Oh, thank you, Alessia. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. And Bankin says the Kanemaru being a piece of shit toward former teammates. What a surprise.
Shocking.
Yeah, exactly. Shocking me. Yeah, I imagine lack of class in that man. But that'll lead to some good stuff because, Desperado will have good matches with him. He could have a good match with Sho. The stuff with Wato has all kinds of subtext. So good things ahead and a fresh face on top for, and it does feel fresh as the champion, yes, even though he's been champion before. It's a different type of thing. The three-way, holy moly, this match. So we are on to the global title match, and boy, hard to say enough about this one. Jon Moxley versus Will Ospreay versus David Finlay, 22 minutes and 17 seconds of beautiful, insane chaos. It's impossible to put this match into any kind of perspective by describing it here. If you haven't seen it, just go and watch this thing. But couple of things that are worth mentioning are the entrances, like you mentioned here. Ospreay came out with the Assassin's Creed video, which was fantastic. They also had Moxley, as you said. We already talked about his story, bringing the DC Comics universe into this. And then we had the truce. So Ospreay and Moxley at the press conference the day before agreed to a 5-minute truce just because that's how much of an asshole David Finlay is. We're like, let's just take the first 5 minutes and beat the shit out of this guy for ruining the belts that we loved and the titles we worked so hard to establish. And they did. Then they actually held to it. And Jeremy, they beat David Finlay from pillar to post for the first 5 minutes in the ring, outside the ring, up the aisle. They came up with 50 different ways to torture this guy. And it was a catharsis for the crowd, which is already annoyed with Finlay enough anyway, that it was just an amazing sell job by Finlay. And I tell you what, for a lot of this match, David Finlay just got the living shit kicked out of him. And it was very, very entertaining. But once that 5-minute run came up, just some incredible sequences started taking place. These three were weaving their way in and out of each other in some very clever sequences here. Of course, Mox bled. We mentioned that. Finlay did the vampire spot, which doesn't get the same pop in Japan. I think they've seen it enough, where you kind of get all the blood up and then spit it. He used the shillelagh. Finlay hit a uranagi on Mox on 2 setup chairs. Looked brutal on his back. Here's one of my favorite ones.
He got a bruise on his side from that one.
It's one of my favorites, Jeremy. Moxley was standing over Ospreay. Finlay charges in. Moxley picks him up and pile drove Finlay onto Ospreay's body, laying underneath him. That was a wow spot that I've never seen before. Have somebody pile driven onto you. Of course, Kidd and Coughlin ran in. No disqualification match, so it worked here to help Finlay. But Mox and Ospreay, after taking a beating for a while, came back. Ospreay hit a springboard cutter on Coughlin. Mox threw the War Dogs onto tables on the outside. Will put them both through those tables with a dive from the top rope.
Coughlin went through the table in a way that was absolutely amazing.
It was great.
Ass first, stuck through the table.
Yeah, it was like a cartoon. It looked like a cartoon, except it was a human being there.
It's like a guy being stuck in an oil drum with his ass in there, but instead it was a table.
And that was at the 20-minute mark, and they're doing all this stuff. And after that, it was just trying to hit finishers, right? And they had these great sequences where one would hit a finisher, and then whoever was not involved would come in and hit the other one. So, for instance, Moxley hit a Death Rider on Finlay, but Ospreay would come through and smash him in the back of the head with a hidden blade. And Finlay almost got the flash pin off of that because it kind of landed on top of him. And there were things like that in there, just hitting finishers on each other, blindsides. And Ospreay hit a Stormbreaker, but couldn't get the pin. Finlay hit the Oblivion for a 2.9 count. That was a great near fall. And then he hit a version of the Oblivion that was almost like he threw the GTS in, where instead of just doing a shoulder breaker type thing off of it, he just jacked him in with his knee
in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, great match. I thought it was thrilling. I'm not doing it justice here because there's just too much to describe. But here's the key.
Chat room, real quick while you do this. Chat room, let us know your opinion. Do you think Finlay came out of this looking as strong as he needed to going forward? We're going to touch on that in a second. Steven, go ahead.
Okay, because that was right where I was going. I thought in this case, Finlay did step up and deliver. He was a little bit in the same situation as, not quite the same, but as Master Wato last year in the 4-way, where Finlay's job is, it's just as much to look good in this match as it is the result. He needed to look like he was on these guys' level. I think he did that. I thought he was really, really good in this match. That was the best David Finlay match I can remember watching. A lot of that was Will and John, because Will and John are fantastic at this stuff. And
I think I chirped back at one of the big social media personalities in wrestling, and I said Finlay stood tall with the Giants and mission accomplished.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some of these comments because we got some great ones here. Venkin says Kanemaru. Oh, no, I missed that one. Sorry about that. Venkin said, hell yeah, them beating up Finlay for 5 minutes. He was in favor. It was cathartic. It felt good. You were like, finally, this guy's getting his ass handed to him. Brad said he really liked this one a lot. Finlay pinning Ospreay after the 2023 that Will had was huge. The new finish he used was dope. It did look pretty good. Venkin says, don't get why he didn't ask the club to come with him at the start. He knew this would happen. Yeah, well, that's a little bit of wrestling.
If they jumped them, they'd be used later on in the match.
Yeah.
They had to keep the element of surprise.
Dunstan said the match was awesome. I was legit looking at the time when the 5 minutes were up. Yeah, I think we all were. And they did put him through a table. And they looked at each other, was like, yeah, I think we did this, didn't we? Yeah. And then, so it was a little bit before the 5 minutes, but it was done in a way that made perfect sense. Like, okay, we killed this guy. Now we can wrestle each other. Yeah, the Moxley Ospreay part was so great. And then, let's see, the match was awesome. Oh, yeah, he said that. Venkin mentioned that we were robbed, he says. But when Will and Mox put Finlay through the table, looked at each other and gave the proverbial thumbs up to get in the ring, and made me laugh out loud. So many things in this match, little moments were done very, very well. Coughlin wasn't head of the table, but he was the ass of it.
He's the centerpiece.
And USVA guy with a very simple answer to our question, did Finlay step up? He says, yes, he did. I think he did too. I think this match helped Finlay a lot. And then, he got into an angle that'll probably end up being a really big deal. So let's talk about that. Ospreay and Moxley, have been beaten. He is walking out with his new global championship. Good looking belt, by the way. And he stops by Nick Nemeth, and Ryan was there as well. Ryan was sitting next to Nick. They start jawing back and forth. There's a push, there's a shove, and they have to be separated. And of course, this is Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler. Afterwards, Nemeth chases him up the aisle, basically, like they separated him out and it looked like things were calming down. And all of a sudden, Nemeth jumps over the rail and chases him down the aisle. That goes all the way into the press conference afterwards, where Nemeth charged at Finlay and ran him off, leaving the global title behind. Nemeth then cut a promo saying that he wanted a piece of Finlay. And it looks like the former Dolph Ziggler is going to be joining New Japan, at least on a partial basis. And I'll tell you what, Jeremy, the issue with the Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, was that he had been in WWE for so long that they had done everything possible with him. And he was as stale as a guy can get in a company. It was never about his ability. It was never about his style or his character. It was just that we had seen every possible combination.
Okay.
The idea of that guy with that kind of athleticism and that kind of experience with all fresh matchups and not having to do endless interviews, sketches, and skits, I think this could turn out to be a great fit for him. The idea of coming in and having really strong matches in New Japan and not having to do all of the other stuff, where he can just be that athlete. And he is a hell of an athlete. This might be the perfect fit for the guy. And I think this could really work. Go ahead.
In a best case scenario, I think that is in fact the case. One of the things that I've noticed, though, is when these WWE individuals come to New Japan, it's usually, a stock raising outing with a few matches here or there, and then they're gone and moving on to whatever promotion will do that. If this is more than that, I would be elated. But I've seen this formula before. I think it's fine. I would much rather have Nick Nemeth here doing matches in New Japan, either in San Jose, Battle in the Valley, or New Beginnings or something like that down the line. Where would you have him? Where would you have him wrestle? Would you have him wrestle in the States, or would you have him wrestle in Japan?
I do in Japan. I think he's a fresh face, and you could bring him in for some of those shows. Here's the point with Nemeth. If he had just gone over to AEW, and I'm sure if AEW had worked out a deal where he could make money and all that, they could do it. But he's still kind of stale because everybody watches everything. There's I think, or at least has access to everything. So if he goes into AEW and just kind of does Dolph Ziggler under a different name, then everyone's like, well, okay, he's good, but half the guys in AEW he already wrestled in WWE at various points.
Right.
The idea of him not having to do all that and then just doing good matches, I think this could be a good thing, even if it's just for a year. Then perhaps it would freshen him up a little bit, so I'm hoping that that's the story here, because as far as a wrestler goes, he's really good. He's really good.
This is a great opportunity for him to have a long run somewhere that will let him stand out. I want to find out if that's exactly the case before I invest too much in the Nemeth experiment in New Japan.
Well, I think we're going to get a look at he and Finlay right there. So let's take a look at here. Brad says he finally stood toe-to-toe with two of the best in the world. He held his own and looked like he belonged. Venkin disagrees, though. He says, no, he picked a fight with a guy at ringside after he won and then ran away with a coward. He just makes evil look good. I mean, he is supposed to be a dick. Heel. He is supposed to be a heel.
He also got his ass kicked and basically escaped with the title. So if you're looking at 100% after the match, you can't hardly blame the guy.
Dunson says, I'm in the middle. He may have looked good, but he still doesn't feel like he's the right fit for the role.
That's fair.
I think he took a step forward, at least, anyway. Yes. I think he looks more like he's there than he did before Wrestle Kingdom, which I suppose is the real goal here. And Dunson says, I can't lie, the new belt bugs me. Oh, okay. It seems so small.
Like, why did you get rid of the Intercontinental title?
I've been asking that since they got rid of the Intercontinental title.
It looked like the Intercontinental title to me. I'm like, oh, cool, a new Intercontinental title.
Damn you, Ibushi. The USVA guy. The issue is fandom has a tendency not to think for ththemselves. They allow other comments to influence their thoughts on storylines and talent. Overall, they don't know what they think or feel. Well, all right, that's take. But Venkin says he's one of the best sellers ever. Yeah, he is really good. Brad says Ziggles somehow felt fresh. He looked revitalized. It did, because there's just no point of reference for him in New Japan at all. And so seeing him there in the suit, not in a Dolph Ziggler like outfit, in a suit, he looked good, and he just looked like he looked like a threat. He just looked like I'm hoping he can be a New Japan wrestler, because this is the question, isn't it? The worry for me, says Dunston, he looked like he gave a damn. The worry for me is, can he handle the style? And therein lies the question. But we'll see. It looks like it's going to be David Finlay for him first, and then we'll go from there. This could be a couple of matches and he's done. Who knows? But it does feel like something fresh.
There is a clear trajectory with David Finlay. Where we go after that, who knows?
Yeah, cool stuff. But again, a good match, right? I mean, just one after another, and totally different than everything else in the card.
I have no thumbs down matches on this card. I guess we can get to that now. There was not a bad match on this card.
And each one, it was totally different than anything else there. and very, very exciting.
Brisk, fast. I was shocked. We were getting out like a time queue of like 2:30 for this match.
Yeah.
My time, Pacific time.
Ah, there you go. About 4:30 here. So after that came the rematch of the century, the one we were all dying for. Before we move on, sorry, Brad just jumped in. Did you see the video Nemeth put out today? His escape from jail video. No, I confess I haven't seen it. Have you, Jeremy?
I saw parts of it, and it is creative. It is well done. It is every I am free from the WWE jail video that you have seen.
Well, he was there a very long time, and they yeah.
And like you got that guy, you got Elias did the Elijah like video where he died and was reborn as Elijah. It's like everybody has their way of saying like I'm no longer with WWE, and Nemeth. He passed the exam, I guess we can say. Like he did, he gave a good message out.
Also important to remember with Nemeth, he has a small stand-up comedy career too. So if he really wants to pursue that, then New Japan might be the way to go because you're just not working all that much. You can just come in for big matches every once in a while, and then you can really pursue comedy. Whereas if you sign with AEW, which isn't bad, right? You're making a lot of money, but you can't just go and do that. It's the schedule. If he really wants to get into comedy as his next thing after wrestling, New Japan might be a good way to do that a lot and then leave every once in a while and do a match. So, which is important to know. So there you go. And Scott Derrickson's wife directed it, and his son did the music. And Scott Derrickson from Doctor Strange. Guy's got contacts, doesn't he? Yes, all right. Up next, special singles match: Kazuchika Okada against Bryan Danielson. The rematch we've been waiting for, and there's no question that this one delivered. But this match had a good vibe all the way through. My note on this one was it was sublime. It was just what we wanted. 23 minutes and 24 seconds. Let's talk about before this match even starts. The entrances for this are super cool. We mentioned that Danielson got pyro for the first time in his entire career. Never happened in AEW, never happened in WWE. He was so damn happy coming to the ring. He was grinning. The crowd was going crazy for him. And when he got in the ring, when Red Shoes went to do the whole, wrist and boot check, he hugged Red Shoes. He was just grinning ear to ear. He was so.
He thought he was coming in for a hug, and he was like, "Oh, I read that wrong."
Yeah, but we kind of did though, and he was happy to. He was just so pleased to be there. And then Okada comes out with this coat. That was a cool looking coat. We've all seen Okada's coats, and they're very elaborate and things. And then his whole presentation stops. Music stops. Lights stop. And what was that? A black light thing that kind of just scans him up and
ultraviolet or black light, because I thought an ultraviolet would change it. Like, I don't know, but he had a color changing robe, and it went from a New Japan robe to a dragon hunting robe.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was fantastic, and that was really cool. Then his music started up again, and he went down to the ring. They sprayed the money before the match again this time because you can't do it after the match because there's another match afterwards. You got to clean all that shit up. So I had to throw the money around there, but that gave Danielson a chance to pick one of the dollar bills up and tear it up there. But he came out with his eye patch, of course. That's part of the whole thing here. It was the broken orbital bone from before. He said he was going to break Okada's arm, and he proceeded to work Okada's arm for much of the first 10 minutes of the match. Danielson is so good at this kind of thing, not 1 minute of that dragged. He just had so many different ways to work that arm. It never got slow. It was always interesting. He eventually hit a butterfly suplex off the top that went into a label lock on Okada. Okada would hit him in the head, and he would sell the eye big time. He was great at selling that. Okada was great at selling the arm. So when the time came to pull the eye patch off completely, that was an effective moment in the match, just pulling off the eye patch, because he would just kind of keep kicking him in that side of the head. And we kind of got grouchy Dick Okada there in a little bit there, but the crowd was very 50-50 in this one. 50-50. I think they were a little more for Okada, the hometown guy, but
they were just into this match.
He hit the big elbow drop off the top. Nobody got hurt, but Okada sold the arm because Danielson had been working on it. Running knee for two. I mean, again, this is a match that I'm not going to do justice by describing move for move here, right? But there was a very dramatic running knee for a two into a label lock that looked like it might have been another submission. They really played it up hard. He got both of the arms pulled way back. Okada looked like he was either going to pass out from pain or tap. It was worked beautifully. He managed to get the ropes at the last second. He did the Rainmaker pose, but could only put one arm out, the one that he hadn't been working. The details in this one was just so beautiful. Danielson did the stomps, where he holds Okada's hands, but that ended up being his undoing, because as he was doing the stomps, Okada grabbed his wrist, pulled him up, and turned that into a Rainmaker. Fighting for big moves led to another running knee. He tried it again, missed it, and Danielson ran into the landslide. Okada hooked in the Rainmaker to win this thing. These are two of the best in the world. This was the match we were hoping to get, and the injury prevented it back in Toronto. It was fantastic. It was state-of-the-art storytelling in wrestling. Afterwards, they knelt down the ring, bowed to one another, not just the standing bow, but the full-blown thing. And Bryan Danielson fulfills a career goal here to wrestle in the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Kingdom. It was beautiful, and everything you love about pro wrestling for me.
Miles and miles and miles and miles and miles better than the Forbidden Door match for me personally. Look, they've just hit differently in the Tokyo Dome. I don't know how to say it other than Ospreay and Omega to me was better in the Tokyo Dome. Okada and Danielson to me was better in the Tokyo Dome. This is just the way it is. So I am 100%. My dogs agree that the Tokyo Dome is all about this. So I'm going to hand it back to you. But while I get them under control, man, this was a special match. All the stars.
Yeah.
All the thumbs up. All the opportunities. We all know this match was going to be great. It delivered. There was only one thing that made me laugh in this entire match. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Go ahead.
They were outside the ring, and Okada had Danielson set up on one side of the rampway, and he walked across the rampway and jumped up on a pallet to get a running start. And his running start consisted of a hop, a skip, and a jump.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
And then he got hit with the psycho knee. Not exactly the accelerated trajectory that I thought he was going for when he came off the pallet. But hey, sometimes you just don't want to tear your ACL jumping off the pallet.
I can respect that decision too. So we'll get to a couple of these, some of these comments here. Venkin says that Bryan gave us a class on how to destroy an arm. Yeah, our class on how to destroy an arm. He certainly did. Both those things, a classic, and it was a class on it. Venkin mentions that, yeah, Red Shoes did hug him. Brad says this effing match. There's nothing else to say. It was perfect.
It was magic, man.
And we got glimpses of asshole Okada, and it was great. Venkin thinks you should save asshole Okada for only Kato Kiyomiya, but I think we'll be seeing that again. Yeah, but he brought a little of that out just to bully Danielson around a little bit with the eye. And then Brad says when they did the 20-minute call, I couldn't believe it. The match felt like it had just started. It was so smooth.
We were talking in the room. I thought this match might go 25 minutes. If the last one went that, they want 30 minutes. These matches have been going short. And Dave's like, oh, this is going to go 35, 40 minutes, and it's going to be a classic. I'm like, you think so? And then it ended at 23 something. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of felt like it was going to be a 25.
Yeah. USVA guy, I'm still annoyed that just last week Danielson loses cleanly to Kingston in an okay match, then steps in and dominates Okada. I'm not too worried about that. The fans chanting yes was incredible. Yeah, that really was. The crowd got into that. Bryan's last full-time year, that means he might be back next year. The crowd loved him. Yeah, maybe. Keep in mind, wrestling retirements are wrestling retirements now. So far, there's only one that's ever been successful, and it's Jack Briscoe. Venkin Bjorn says, I'll give it a 5.5. I'd imagine stars. He's probably guessing there. Dunn says, given an extra 5 minutes, this match would have hit nuclear in the dome.
Yep.
Yeah, but I felt like it was the right way to end it. I don't really have any notes.
Naito Sanada, and Naito Sanada ended perfectly.
Yeah. But this was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. Had a great time watching it. Yeah. Just a feel good moment for everybody. Like I said, if Danielson can just get to Arena Mexico at some point this year, it'll be the year that he's always dreamed of, and I think he deserves to have it.
There are people that are going to say that Omega and Ospreay at the Dome last year was better than this, and they might be right. But I think I liked this more, and I loved that match.
Yeah, and Danielson was all smiles afterwards, even though I lost.
Smiles during the match, like the whole thing. We were all just like, you have the time of his life. He's so happy.
We were all Danielson that
I was
one.
going to say something, but you were already like, he was so happy coming down the ramp. Like, yeah, he was.
Yeah, it was just the whole feel good thing is like we were all him in that moment. Like we all think like that's how we'd feel if we were in the ring of the dome.
Got to see Bryan Danielson in the Tokyo Dome. We all have talked about this for 12, 10, 5, 8, 2, 3 years. Like you start your clock of wrestling fandom, you've been talking about Bryan Danielson in the Tokyo Dome.
We got to see it. It was great.
Yeah.
One more match to go. No, one more match to go.
All right. The main event, and the audience in the Tokyo Dome made it clear that this was the main event of the show.
Boy, they were into this one. And the IWGP World Heavyweight title, SANADA against Tetsuya Naito, went 25 minutes and 42 seconds. So, looking back, nothing went 26. It was 25-42.
What show?
Tetsuya Naito is over, boys and girls. The crowd went nuts for this guy's entrance. And it was...
Like the entire audience of the Hiroshima Carp showed up for the
yes, that's right. And SANADA's entrance was also very cool. And the match kind of began, and the crowd was primed for it. The first 10 minutes were a steady main event style match, and I don't mean anything but compliments by that. It was just well worked, just building up because that it's not time yet to kick things in. But there was a skull end at the 11-minute mark, and that got things moving. So. All of that is simply to set things up. Naito worked on SANADA's neck a lot. And SANADA hit his sudden high impact offense on Naito, setting up skull ends and moving in and out of holds and all that stuff. It was just really well worked. And of course, these guys know each other pretty well. Naito hit a draping neck breaker, for instance. SANADA hit a poison rana, but then went for the moonsault, but Naito got his knees up for that. It just kept building and building momentum. It just felt like the match was starting to roll downhill. It seemed like, what I mean by that is like each minute seemed a little bit more intense than the previous one.
It was accelerating rapidly as the match was building. Like the urgency felt there. I know what you're saying.
Naito is a master psychologist, and SANADA, we got the really good SANADA today. And more than that, we got some emotion out of SANADA during the match. There were times in this match when his facial expressions were there and he was in the moment and he was expressing himself. And I just thought, damn it all, SANADA, if only we could get this from you more, it would be so much better. But I'm not here to knock the rest of his title reign or anything like that. This match is what we're here to talk about. And he did a hell of a great job. I think this match absolutely salvaged his reign. Naito hit an Esperanza and then a Destino. Second Destino was countered into a TKO at about the 20-minute mark. Now we're talking. Now the crowd's going. And the crowd was never quiet during this match. This felt like a more pre-pandemic crowd at this point. And it had felt that way for a few matches at that point. SANADA hit a moonsault to Naito's back, hit his second one to the front for 2. Naito fought back to hit the Destino again for a 2 count. Tried for another one. But SANADA turned it into a deadfall, but was too beaten up to cover him. Key moment there. SANADA hit a Destino of his own. Naito managed to counter that with a tornado DDT, and the crowd's living and dying by every single one of these moves. SANADA went for another deadfall. Naito reversed it into his own deadfall. That got a huge pop. After that, it was all downhill for SANADA. Valencia, Naito hits the Valencia, then he hits the Destino for 3. Crowd was going absolutely wild. He's
legit headbutted SANADA on that last Destino.
Yeah, they bonked heads on it there. He was the only member of LIJ to win tonight. Everyone else lost their matches. And the key to this one, like you mentioned, did it salvage SANADA's title reign? Well, it certainly was by far the best match of the reign and maybe the best SANADA match I've ever seen. There was a G1 match with Okada that was gorgeous too, from SANADA down a few years ago. It was the one I think where SANADA beat him with a few seconds left in the time limit, but that was great too. But this was special, and you got his full effort. SANADA was in the moment expressing himself. His athleticism is beyond reproach. We know this. The only thing missing from him was this charisma, and it was all there in this match. And like, where's this been, SANADA? My God, this is what we were looking for the whole time. And the good news is His title reign is not going to go down as a very good one in IWGP World Heavyweight history, but this match is going to go down as a very, very special match. We'll get to the aftermath because that was important as well in a second. But the match itself, Jeremy, how did you feel when Naito got that 3 count?
I felt, and I'll be honest with you, happy but almost bittersweet, because it was like, you know, when something is over, like a journey or a story, and it's like that final word is put to paper, and it's like, okay, the story's been told. Cody's story has ended. Well, Naito's story has ended. And, you know, like, tomorrow's a new day. He's going to walk around with that belt. I don't personally think he's going to have that belt for very long. But this was all about tonight. And when the match was over and he was laying on the mat and then they put the towel over his head, it was just like, all right, this audience made this match. You know, it's like this audience elevated everything about this match. You had a number of people on the internet, and the internet in a lot of ways is not real, telling us that this match wasn't important and that this match didn't carry weight and legitimacy for New Japan. And it was kind of weird that this was the main event. Hey, now, let's think about this. You know, it's like, this was the most important thing at the end of the year for New Japan this year. And that audience, they made it clear.
So afterwards, Naito was there. He picks up the microphone. And by the way, Brad, I predicted this. And I'm the one. We'll get to the... Jeremy's been flat out clairvoyant in a lot of things. I'm the one that predicted this. But he picks up the microphone. He is about to speak. Suddenly, Evil and Dick Togo slide in the ring and attack Naito. And this is why I was advocating for this for a few weeks now. The idea of the roll call, him doing the roll call, they've created merch about the roll call. The roll call. It was as much of a spot in this thing as anything, as any move was, as any 3 count was. They had to put it in jeopardy to get the full dramatic effect out of this. If he had just gotten in the ring and just does the roll call immediately, it would have been great. No one would have complained. That little extra icing on the cake is putting the roll call itself in jeopardy because it had happened before, and I thought that they would tease it again coming up. It was just such a perfect little bit of icing. Like I said, just that one extra thing that makes it a little bit more dramatic. So Evil's got him there. Dick Togo's got him there. Now, we were wondering, would the rest of LIJ come out and celebrate? How was the roll call going to be saved? They came up with a wonderful solution to that. Just as Evil is about to say, "You're not getting your roll call, you son of a..." SANADA pulls himself back up and delivers a shining wizard to Evil, knocking him down. He then helps Naito get rid of Dick Togo, and Naito is left alone there to give his post-match speech, at which point he pays tribute to SANADA, as SANADA is just about to leave, going up the aisle, saying, "I wouldn't be holding this microphone if it weren't for you." Might have been a little dusty in my house at that time. I'm not sure. Got something in my eye at that moment. And then afterwards, SANADA bowed to him. The crowd starts chanting "SANADA, SANADA."
I might have got a little dusty in my eye when that happened.
And then SANADA is in tears. And there have been great moments over the years of guys leaving the Tokyo Dome in tears.
Yeah.
Like the Okada, one of the greatest, when he lost to Tanahashi and he hadn't quite gotten to the mountain, and Gedo is, arm around him and he's crying. They don't do it much, but when they do it perfectly. And this was another example of it. And I think a lot of that was probably genuine from SANADA right there. It was that he realized that the crowd respected his effort as much as Naito's in that moment. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, there was never any other choice but Evil. And it was because of the LIJ link.
Yeah.
You have SANADA there, who was once part of LIJ. You had Evil there, who was part of the LIJ and left. All you're doing is you're bringing all the disparate parts of LIJ back, just like they did at the Suzuki-gun retirement ceremony, where all these disparate parts, even if it wasn't like everybody showed up and had a part to play in the LIJ finale, if that makes any sense. And Evil played his part, and it couldn't have been anybody else. It never could have been anybody else.
Yeah. So let's say everybody was either mentioned in the roll call or was part of the angle afterwards that's ever been in LIJ. Every member of LIJ was a part of this whole thing. So Naito at the end did do the roll call, and that ending, De Hapon, blew the roof off the Tokyo Dome. The crowd sat there and they were going to have this moment. They got the moment. It was wonderful. You got to see Tetsuya and Naito walk up that gorgeous aisle with that set and the video screens, dragging the IWGP World Heavyweight title, as he should. Naito shouldn't put that thing on. He should go and just drag it behind him there. No notes, perfect. This is the happy ending we wanted. And I get what you mean about how there's a tinge of sadness to it, because we know that Naito's getting older. We know his body is not holding up the way it had. And we know that this is the moment. It's never gonna quite be this good again, is it? Like, this is it. And but we got it.
It will be another 10, 12, 15 years before we are in a position where there is a guy with a legacy and a story in New Japan that has had the longevity that Naito has, the stories, the main events. Like, there just isn't anyone there with that kind of cachet. And to build that, to go again, is going to take a very long time. And so when I say it's bittersweet, it's because this is a generational story, and it's not going to happen again next year, and it's not going to happen in like 3 years. Yeah. You know, it's like this is done for a while. This kind of era-ending event for New Japan.
So Naito wins his first G1. His match against Kazuchika Okada is demoted to semi-main event due to a fan vote. He is sent off to refigure his character. Comes back as screw you people and screw your belts, Naito, which was great. Him abusing the title belts when he would win them, just like, you guys didn't accept me when I did want this thing. Now, now up yours, right? Goes through that whole character arc. Gets back to it. Loses, gets back to it, wins, but doesn't get the roll call because he's attacked by Kenta. And we'll get to Kenta here in a second because he had something to do with this too today. After all that, he gets back and he has the full-blown moment, the victory, the crowd on his side, him wanting the belt now and getting it, and then getting his roll call. It was a gorgeous ending to a 10-year-long story. So fantastic stuff. Let's hear what the folks have to say about it. Yeah. Brad says Naito's over just a little bit. Yes. And he elaborates. So he says, when I got back into New Japan around 2016, 2017, Naito was the first guy I became a fan of. This match was so special. His story was built perfectly to this payoff. Yeah. Thankin mentions, how many Destinos was it? 4? It's a lot of Destinos in this match, but by both men. Is the Destino the least protected finisher in wrestling? It seems like everyone kicks out, but it's still a huge move. Yeah, it doesn't have the it doesn't get the win every single time. In fact, he usually has to do 2 in a row in order to get the victory. And no Stardust Press. No Stardust Press at all. Vengan said, I noticed those losses too. Brad says Jeremy wins the G1 pool, calls the end of the IWGP tag title match. And then we corrected this part about Evil coming out. I got that one, by God. I can pull a little bit of weight around here once in a while. But yeah, I'd say we're pretty well in tune with this company. I think we could do it.
We pay attention. We do our homework.
But more importantly, Jeremy, Brad wants to know the lotto numbers. So get those to him in a private chat.
It's my birthday this week, so I'm going to save those for me.
Evil made sense. We all knew he was the best heel that's free at the moment. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons it makes sense because the LIJ connection, and like I talked about too, I really think New Japan wants his first defense to just be full-blown babyface Naito against full-blown jerk heel. No, we can divide the audience later, but let's just have the one where everybody wants the same thing. And let's see, Venkin just says, and the crowd cheered for SANADA. Yeah, they sure did. They really appreciated that match. They appreciated that effort. And that was a special moment for SANADA, even in the defeat, walking out with the crowd chanting his name. Much deserved. And yes, Brad mentions this. Kenta did tweet out a simple tweet where he just put De Hapon in Japanese right there. Yeah, he did. That was his tweet today to send a little bit of a tribute out. And Brad says, might have been the greatest long-term story we've had in a very long time. Yeah, for sure. There are others that have potential, but they never seem to pay off like this. And Dunson says, I hope Naito throws that belt everywhere until we get the V4 belt back. Dunson says, let me dream. So
let me dream. I'll tell you my dream. We did it, Steven. We finished our Wrestle Kingdom coverage, and now you're going on vacation.
I am going on vacation. I will not be here next week. I will be floating around the Caribbean somewhere. So
no internet, no internet stream. They don't. He's cruising the high seas. He's not cruising the internet stream.
That's exactly right. Now they do have the internet. You can get the internet package.
Yes.
I do not want it. The entire point is to get the living hell away from it for a week. Yes. So I am not paying for that. I don't want it. I want to go away for a while.
I tentatively have a guest host. I am not going to announce guest host because I need to make sure that they are going to be available next week, and I do not want to put them in a position of anything other than thank you for coming to help me out. If not, I will have another secret guest host, and we will announce that shorter to the show. I'm working on it, everybody, but I promise you we will have a show next week.
There'll be a show next week. You're going to have plenty to talk about because New Year's Dash is tomorrow. And we'll have
Battle of the Valley, which I am going to.
I tell you, we cover this company like a
blanket. Battle of the Valley. Potentially be trying to set up and network some interviews going forward with some people there in New Japan. I am, getting ambitious with the podcastery. But yes, we will be here back next week, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, without Stephen Conway, but I will be here. Stephen, what do you got?
And in 2 weeks, when we come back, we'll have plenty to talk about, all the news and all the things, Battle in the Valley and all that. But also, we're going to talk about Killer Khan, who is a big star and a very important figure in New Japan history who passed away. We just don't have time for it this week on Wrestle Kingdom Week. But Killer Khan passed away. We're going to get into him and what he meant. He has a very strong influence today. Basically, Great O'Khan's doing his act for the most part in a way. But he had a real impact on professional wrestling. He deserves to be talked about and deserves a little bit of a tribute. A top New Japan guy, WWF guy, big star all over the world. Killer Khan passing away at his restaurant not too long ago. So we'll talk about him in a couple of weeks. We'll get into a little history segment there.
Popcorn round, Steven. Then get asked to go over the Noah main event disaster. Do you want to spend a minute and I'll spend a minute with our thoughts or less? And you just...
I hate to end on this. I just hate to end on a sad note like that. We were going on.
We live to please the fans.
There is no Kota Ibushi anymore as we know him. And what we saw there was, I'm not going to suppose too much on the air right here, but he needs a little bit of help. He needs to take a step back from pro wrestling and figure out if this is really what he can do going forward. He's hurt there. He's definitely injured. We knew that he looked like he was hurt coming into the match. It looked like there was more than that going on. And it reminded me too much eerily of Sting and Jeff Hardy, except Naomichi Marufuji is so good that he somehow managed to pry or he had to get 20 minutes out of that mess. This was uncomfortable to watch. It was sad to watch. It was painful to watch. And I just hope that Ibushi, he has to step away now because his body is banged up and injured again. But there's more than that going on. I think he needs to figure things out before he comes back again. He looked puffy. He looked out of shape. And there are things beyond bad ankles going on, I think, that need to be addressed. And whatever that is, I don't know what that is, but that's not the guy that was in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Didn't really want to talk about it because it wasn't germane to New Japan. Kota's not really in New Japan anymore. Wasn't really with the New Japan talent, but I understand why we're having this conversation. It was sad. It was just sad. And there's no amount of punditry or commentary that you can say that can eloquently put forth the sadness that I felt in watching it and wondering why this match is even happening. Why Noah felt like they had to go through with this match. The anger of Marufuji within the match of having to carry Kota through it. The arrogance that Kota thought that he could do this match. There was just a lot of mistakes. It makes me very sad. And I hope that if Kota is ever able to come back in the ring, and honestly, I think this should be it for him, at least for a very, very long time. your health is more important than performing for people.
Yeah, and whatever that means. I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but I hope he takes a step back and gets himself together, because it's just clearly not the same guy. And I don't mean just physically. So there's a lot going on. So hopefully he gets some help. So,
but hey, the Tokyo main event ruled.
Absolutely. So, all right, man. I think we did this, right?
We nailed it.
Whew.
Call us the hammer because we nailed it.
Man, I watched a lot of good wrestling this week.
You know what I'm not going to do for the next couple of days?
What's that?
After New Year's Dash, I'm not going to watch any wrestling for a couple of days.
Oh, I'm
going to enjoy myself. I'm gonna play some video games.
I'm gonna try to catch up on stuff until the ship leaves the dock.
There you go.
I'm going to be watching stuff all weekend, man. I'm just going to try to catch up.
I am exiting the kingdom of wrestling for a week.
With that in mind, for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Jeremy will be back next week with a guest to talk.
And my dog, who loves to hang out.
New Year's Dash, Battle in the Valley. The story never ends, really. We just have to find out what the next chapters are. And I think we're going to get a big clue as to those items tomorrow. So for Jeremy, I'm Stephen. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Speaking of Strong Style. We'll talk to you again very soon.